The following podcast is a SIMPRONTO Media production.
Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. And I'm so excited to introduce to you Anshul Gupta, who is a doctor. And what I love about him is that he was a traditional doctor. He's now moved over into the functional medical field. And our title today is Why Are You Not Able to Lose Weight with Hashimoto's? So, Dr. Gupta, welcome. Tell listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to the show. It's a pleasure.
Well, let's talk about Hashimoto's for just a second, because we know that weight gain is the number one complaint of Hashimoto's patients. And most often, even after trying different things, they might get on thyroid medicine and they are still saying, yeah, I'm still taking thyroid medicine, but I'm not getting better. I'm still not able to lose the weight. Tell us a little bit about your background of how you transitioned from being kind of a more traditional doctor into functional medicine, and what can these people do to kind of get that weight off?
Absolutely. That's my passion, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. To kind of know my background, so I am a traditional family medicine MD. So that's what I trained as a family medicine MD. I practiced for more than 5 years as a traditional doctor, taking care of kids and adults and females. I was seeing several thyroid patients. But then, I later on, my health issues started coming up. So then I transitioned into functional medicine MD. So I trained with Institute of Functional Medicine, got my certification done. I also did a fellowship training with the Academy of Integrative Medicine. So I did fellowship training with them. I also did peptide certification with A4M. So that's what I have been doing. And then after that, I joined a Cleveland Clinic Functional Medicine Department. And I worked alongside Dr. Mark Hyman, which a lot of people kind of call him as a father of functional medicine, because he introduced us all to the functional medicine. So I worked alongside with him. And actually, it was at the functional medicine department at the Cleveland Clinic where I found my passion to help Hashimoto's patients. So that's what now I do. My goal is to help at least 1 million people with Hashimoto's to regain their life back, to help them to lose weight sustainably, to clear their brain fog, and end their fatigue. So I developed a 3-step program to help these Hashimoto's patients.
That's awesome. And just so you know, I am a Hashimoto's patient, and I feel like I know so much about thyroid because first of all, I've had so many guests on the show. And on top of that, I've done so much homework on my own. I went to go see an endocrinologist and literally schooled her on so much stuff. I was like, no, absolutely not. That's incorrect. Let me show you. And she was like, wow, you know more about thyroid than I do. And I was like, yes, actually I do. It was pretty sad. And so for me personally, my thyroid is so much better than it was. It was funny. I actually just got my hair done today, and my hairdresser was like, your hair is so thick, Chantel. And I was like, well, thank you so much. Because at one point my thyroid was so bad, my hair was literally falling out by the clumps because it was so terrible. So absolutely. I'm going to ask you some specific questions. But before I do, what would you say the people who are coming to you, let's say they are on thyroid medicine currently. They've looked at their numbers, but they still are tired. They're still having weight gain. Kind of give me the top things that would be going on in someone. Kind of first you look at this might be an issue. This might be an issue. What would you say are those top reasons?
Absolutely. So what I figured out through my research at the Cleveland Clinic was that we were looking at Hashimoto's in a totally wrong way. We always think that Hashimoto's is all about just deficiency of thyroid hormone, and just giving them levothyroxine will fix it. But that is not the reality, right? Taking all the levothyroxine medicine, people still continue to suffer with symptoms. So what I figured out was that, there was an underlying reason in Hashimoto's patients, which is not letting them to feel better. And that was a disconnection between mitochondria and thyroid. And that's what I call as a mitothyroid connection, which is broken in Hashimoto's patients. Now, the top reasons which I feel this connection is broken in, Hashimoto's patients is, first of all, toxins is a very, very important reason. We are living in a current world which we are surrounded with toxins all the time, whether it is mold toxins, whether it is environmental toxins or heavy metals. So almost all of my Hashimoto's patients will have some or the other toxins. The second reasons is infections. Several viral infections, have been associated with Hashimoto's, especially Epstein-Barr virus infection, which we call as mono infection, in the common language. Then parasites, parasites in our gut can lead to these things. And then other chronic infections like Lyme disease, and Bartolina and Babesia, all of those can lead to that. So that's the second reason that, which is going on in Hashimoto's patients. And the third reason is food sensitivities. We have more and more patients who have food sensitivities going on, and they keep on eating those foods, and that ultimately leads to destruction of the thyroid gland. So I will say those are my top three things that I will say is going on in Hashimoto's patients, which kind of needs to be addressed for them to feel better.
All right, so let's start with the food sensitivities first. So I know I love your website, by the way, and that's AnshulGuptaMD.com. We'll put that in the show notes, but you talk about the 5 foods that are kind of, I think it was actually 6. Was there 6 foods on there that you said, hey, these are kind of the big zingers of why, your thyroid, these are the food sensitivities you might be having. So tell us what those 6 are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, food sensitivities are a big issue now these days. So first of all, why is that now we have more food sensitivity as compared to, like a decade ago? So the reason what is happening, our food is changing at a very, very rapid rate, right? All these GMO foods coming in, and even if we do not have GMO, the modern agriculture has caused our food to change. So the genetic makeup of food, which was 100 years ago, is totally different than what it is now. And our body cannot keep up with it. Our body changes, but it takes millions of years for a body to change, while a food in only 100 years has changed. So that's the reason we are seeing more and more food sensitivities, because this food is literally like an alien to us now. So that's the difference. So the top food, which I've seen with Hashimoto's patients, which is a problem, gluten is the number one. Second is dairy. Third thing is soy. Fourth thing, I see is corn. The fifth thing I see is processed meat or processed food. And the sixth thing is sugar. So those are the top 6 foods, which most of the people with Hashimoto's will have trouble with. Now, not all of the foods might be a problem for everybody, but I will say majority of the Hashimoto's patients will at least have more than 2 or 3 of these foods, which their body dislikes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's what I've found is funny. Those are all an issue for me. The one food that is weird, I kind of go back and forth on, is dairy. So, meaning sometimes I have dairy and it actually makes me feel better. It's like very strange. And I think it depends on the kind of dairy that I'm having. And so if I have certain types of dairy, like if I'm having like an organic yogurt, like a Greek yogurt, I could eat butter all day long. It doesn't affect me at all. I could load vegetables up with butter and I feel like $1 million. But there are certain dairies, believe it or not, that I don't feel good on. And then there's some that I actually feel better for some reason. And I think it's yogurt for some reason, like some Greek yogurts and stuff like that. I don't know what's going on with that, but somehow I don't feel bad with them.
Yeah, so it all depends, right? First of all, the major problem with dairy is that, the modern day dairy farming is just, doesn't treat the animals in a right way, right? So the dairy products from them is definitely inflammatory. So when my patients or my clients are doing dairy, I make sure that it is organic, then it is pasture raised. And the second of all, I always ask them to go to these like local dairy farms, where they know how they are treating their livestock. So that's the most important thing. So it might be possible that, when you are consuming dairy, you are definitely getting it from a better quality source. So then the inflammatory, situation with them is less. And and second of all, yogurts, especially Greek yogurts, has a high amount of protein and a lot of probiotics. So that also there is the reason that maybe your gut just likes them.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about mitochondria for just a second. You mentioned it, but for those who have not heard what mitochondria is, I want you to kind of tell it to us in a very easy way. So, like for me, I know that they're an important part of our cells because they take food and make energy that the rest of the cell can use. Correct?
So yes, you are correct that mitochondria are our energy producer. Mitochondria in just one line where it says that mitochondria is a powerhouse. And that's the way we discovered mitochondria when we were trying to figure out how do we produce energy, and we came to know about mitochondria. But the interesting part is that the new research shows that mitochondria does much more than just producing energy. Now they are involved in aging process. Now we know that they also play an important role, especially in immune dysfunctions like autoimmune diseases in Hashimoto's. So that's where, interesting part is that, a lot of research and a lot of things are coming up, where people are talking about, to improve aging, we need to focus on mitochondria. And then in autoimmune diseases like MS, we are talking about mitochondria. But in thyroid, especially Hashimoto's, we are not talking about mitochondria. So that's where, I want to focus on. So there is a connection between thyroid and mitochondria. And we already know about that, for a long, long time. But we think that, the connection between thyroid and mitochondria functions very well. And the only reason that, this connection is broken is that when we have low thyroid hormone. And that's what exactly we thought was going on in Hashimoto's. But that was absolutely wrong, because even after giving thyroid hormone, the mitochondria function doesn't get better. So what's the connection between thyroid and mitochondria? So in simple terms, thyroid is your gas pedal in the car and mitochondria is your engine. So unless, the gas pedal and engine both are in good shape, your body is not going to function well. And in Hashimoto's patients, this connection is broken. So the gas pedal is doing its own thing and engine is doing its own thing. And that's where people have trouble. So that's where people are not able to lose weight. They continue to have brain fog issues and they feel fatigued because, this connection is not working.
Yeah. So let's talk about parasites for just a second. And then after that, we'll talk about Candida and fungus kind of invading someone's gut. When it comes to parasites, one of the things that is crazy is so I went to my regular doctor because one of the things for me is that my iron and my ferritin were extremely low. So when I go get my blood work done, now I eat like ground beef, literally because my iron is so low and I have such problems with my iron. I eat ground beef probably, or some kind of steak, about 5 days out of the week, like a good portion of meat, because that's how I feel better, because I need that iron and so forth. But still, if you look on my blood work shows that my ferritin levels are low, my iron levels are low. And so I thought, well, I probably have parasites because the parasites are probably eating the iron, and that's why my iron is so low. So I went to a regular internal doctor, and they said that they literally had me put in about maybe a quarter of a toothpick amount of poop in a little vial and send it in. I mean, it was ridiculous how little amount of poop that they wanted. And I was thinking to myself, how are these people ever going to see parasites? I mean, I'm not putting in very much poop in the vial. And so they did it and they said, no, you don't have any parasites. Then I did another test where I had to take I took a lot, it's kind of from a functional medicine place. And I took in a lot, and they said that I had mold in my gut, but I'm still convinced that I have parasites because there's no other explanation of why my iron levels are so low. So my iodine levels are low and my ferritin and iron levels are low. So can you talk about that for a bit, and what kind of testing do you do to see if that you are as accurate to see if you do have parasites?
Yeah, so that is definitely a big red flag. When your iron levels are low, then in those cases, I will definitely order, functional medicine stool testing kit, and I will do three samples, three samples on 3 consecutive days instead of just one sample.
Gotcha. Okay, so now let's talk about Candida and fungus in the gut, because that can also be an issue for people still having a problem with Hashimoto's. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. So candida is a big issue, which lives in the gut, of several Hashimoto's patients. Now, the candida, is an inflammatory fungus. It causes a lot of inflammation, which ultimately can lead to autoimmune issues, and that's what Hashimoto's is all about. So, there was actually a research study where they actually looked for whether candida can cause autoimmune issues. And what they figured out was that the DNA or the molecular structure of candida was kind of similar to some of the organs of our body. And thyroid was one of those. So, like in autoimmune disease, there is a mechanism which is called molecular mimicry. Okay, what happens in that is that, like when we have something which is external to our body, that can be like a pathogen like candida, or it can be something like food. When we ingest those, our body thinks, like body wants to get rid of them. So they start producing antibodies. Now, these candida, when they have similar molecular pattern as similar to as a thyroid, these antibodies actually start hurting our own thyroid. So that's the reason people start, developing Hashimoto's. So that's an important factor, that we need to look for candidal overgrowth in Hashimoto's patients. And if that is present, then definitely treating it will definitely improve the Hashimoto's antibodies and also improve the inflammatory markers.
So let's talk about Epstein-Barr virus, also known as human herpes virus 4. And it is a member of the herpes virus family. But, when we think about Epstein-Barr, a lot of people also say, okay, well, that's mono. It can cause mono. So let's talk about why Epstein-Barr is so prevalent and kind of some of the symptoms people can feel, and what are you doing to test for that?
Yeah. So Epstein-Barr virus is a very, very common virus, right? Almost 90+% of population will get exposed to it in their lifetime. It's like common cold, right? You cannot do anything, right? In your lifetime, you are going to get exposed to it. Doesn't matter whatever you do. Most of the time it happens in teenagers that we get exposed to it. When you first get Epstein-Barr virus infection, it presents at can be just a minor viral illness. You get a little bit of fever, you feel a little bit fatigued, you have a little bit of body pains, and sometimes you might have lymph nodes which are enlarged, right? Most of the time it's a self-limiting condition. People will get over it. But what people do not know is that once you get Epstein-Barr virus infection, it stays in your body forever. Okay. And then what we now know is that, the research actually has proven that people who have Epstein-Barr virus infection has more chances of getting Hashimoto's disease later on in their life. So it doesn't necessarily have to start then and there when you got the Epstein-Barr virus infection. It is later on in the life. So then they start looking, why is that the reason? So what they figured out was that the Epstein-Barr virus can get reactivated in your body, and that's reactivation causes that Hashimoto's disease. So what happens is that, like when I talk about reactivation, people go to their regular doctors and talk about checking for Epstein-Barr virus, and they get a test. But that test only checks for acute infections. It doesn't check for reactivation. So you need to get a complete panel which not only checks for like acute infection, but also checks for long-term antibodies and also nuclear antigen antibodies to make sure that that you have a reactivation or not.
So I know I took a blood test and it said that I had recently, in the comments, it said something like recently healed from Epstein-Barr or something, that it was like detected, but that it wasn't active, something like that, that it said on my lab work. And I will tell you the number one thing that has helped me, and have told people about it to a bunch of people that have said that they've had Epstein-Barr, is a supplement called Epicor, EPICOR. Have you heard of it?
Yep, I have heard of it. I think that's a very nice supplement. It helps a lot of times, with several of my clients. And you're absolutely correct that, taking it can be so, so helpful. I've used it in numerous of my patients.
Yeah, I have it on. If you guys go to my website and go to chantelrayway.com and click on things I love, there's a specific one that I have on there that I really recommend. So make sure you go to that link, go to things I love and things I love too, and you can see the link and order it right there on Amazon. But so what are some of the things that you're seeing? Let's talk about solutions, because I think people get annoyed when they're like, yes, they're probably listening to this podcast. They're like, yes, I have that. Yes, that's me. Yes, that's me. Yes, that's me. But we bring the problem, but we don't bring the solution. So let's talk about some of the biggest solutions that you've seen that are very practical that you can help people with.
Absolutely. So, that's where my 3-step program kind of comes into place. Okay. So in the 3 steps, first of all, we identify the problem, right? So we need to look for all the root causes which are causing destruction to this mitothyroid connection. So that's where, we look at toxins, we look at infections, we look at food sensitivities, we look at like stress and trauma, and also nutritional insufficiencies. So first we need to kind of get a complete picture of what we are dealing with. So that's the first step. Now, the second step is where we start, rejuvenating or regenerating this mitothyroid connection. So for that, what I have developed is that, I developed this mitothyroid diet. Now, the interesting part is that, all the research that I've done, we have all different kinds of diet for different kinds of, medical issues, whether it is MS, whether it is an autoimmune diet, whether it is, paleo diet. But we do not have any diet for thyroid patients or Hashimoto's patients. There has been no diet which has been propagated especially for them. So that's what I figured out, is that first we need to remove food in this diet which is hurting your thyroid. Then we need to introduce food which helps your thyroid to function better, as well as helps to regenerate your mitochondria. So that's the cornerstone of this mitothyroid diet, that we do. Along this diet, we add intermittent fasting, which is so popular, works great for a lot of my clients. And then we also add some supplements to support, your thyroid as well as mitochondria, so that, this whole process works good for them.
So let's talk about those supplements. Do you have some of those supplements on your website? And what are some of the main vitamins that you see that people are missing that kind of cause? Well, first, before you even, I want you to answer that, but I also want you to make sure that you address iodine, because I feel like I've heard different people talk about iodine, and that people are in 2 camps. People say, if you're low in iodine, you shouldn't have too much iodine if you have health issues. And if you have iodine, it's better for you. So first of all, which camp are you in on that as well?
So, like being, an academic person, I always like to kind of follow the research, right? In that purposes. So I'm definitely more on the conservative side. So what I believe is that, first of all, checking iodine levels is a good step. And if your iodine levels are low, then definitely we need to replace it. But if the iodine levels are on the high side, then I'm not, in favor of giving iodine supplements. But I favor foods which are high on iodine. So that's what I recommend to all of my clients when their iodine levels are like on the upper normal limit of the blood levels and they still have Hashimoto's or thyroid. Then I say that, I don't think a supplement is a good idea for you, but definitely push a lot of foods which are high in iodine. And that generally works good for them.
Hey guys, one of the things that will take your weight loss to the next level is coaching. You can either work one-on-one with me or one of our certified private coaches. If you'd like, you can schedule your free call. It's a 10-minute strategy call just to see if coaching is going to really take you to the next level. Don't just take my word for it. Listen to this recent review a happy coaching client sent in.
Thanks so much for your help and guidance. I never could have done it without you.
The other thing is listening to the audiobook. Listening to the audiobook and getting the video course that I've done, people are seeing dramatic results. If you just listen to the audiobook 30 minutes a day over and over and over again and get the video course, go to chantelrayway.com and check out the video course. You won't be sorry you did. Gotcha. Now, what supplements have you seen that really kind of work well? Do you have some on your site, or do you have kind of some go-tos that really help make the thyroid work well?
Yeah, so some of the supplements which kind of help with thyroid and this kind of, so some of the supplements, which I think, are helpful for this thyroid and mitothyroid connection. First of all, B vitamins, B for boy, like B vitamins are very, very important. These help not only your thyroid gland, but also helps with functioning of mitochondria. In that, folate and B12 and B6 are the most important ones. Okay, so that's what I push for. Then magnesium is an important mineral, which again helps with your thyroid gland, plus also rejuvenates your mitochondria. Then there are some mitochondrial supplements. The main important ones is coenzyme Q10 or CoQ10, and the alpha lipoic acid, and then L-carnitine. Okay, a mixture of all these things. Most of the time they are used in combination, and that works great for mitochondrial health. And then for thyroid, I also use zinc and selenium because those are also very important supplement, which helps with functioning of your thyroid. So most of the time, these supplements are available like in combination products. So that way, like it sounds a lot, but you only have to take 3 or 4, different pills, and that will give you all of these things.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about adrenal fatigue for just a second, because that's a big word on everyone right now. And obviously the adrenal glands are kind of like your de-stress glands. They help you to de-stress, but everybody right now seems to be on more stress than they ever. And your adrenal glands are kind of associated with your body's ability to respond to stress. And so someone might say, well, do I have adrenal dysfunction, or do I have thyroid dysfunction, or is the adrenal dysfunction causing the thyroid dysfunction? So how do you differentiate the two of them and know, is it overlapping or is it one or the other?
So there is a strong connection between thyroid and adrenal gland. Your thyroid hormone affects your adrenal function, and your adrenal hormone, which is your cortisol, also affects your thyroid hormone. So it's a two-way connection. So most of the time, if you do have a thyroid disorder, there is a high likelihood that you might have some degree of adrenal dysfunction going on. Okay. But unfortunately, the symptoms of adrenal dysfunction and thyroid dysfunction often overlap, right? Often people with adrenal dysfunction will have fatigue, they will have brain fog, they will not lose weight, right? So that's very overlapping. So few ways, that you can differentiate between an adrenal dysfunction and a thyroid dysfunction is, first of all, there are some signs and symptoms, that you can see. So the major signs for adrenal dysfunction is that most of the time, the weight gain will be around your waist. Okay. So when people will say, well, I'm not losing inches, because I have this weight around my waist, which is just not going away, that points towards adrenal dysfunction. Second of all, if you have fragile skin, like as soon as, you have a small scratch that, skin starts bleeding, that's another sign of adrenal dysfunction. Then, if you are always fatigued, that is again a sign of adrenal dysfunction that you will see. So that's the kind of, symptoms that you can differentiate, with adrenal and thyroid. But the other better way is actually do testing. So you can check your cortisol levels, easy test. You can check your cortisol levels in saliva, and that can actually tell you where your levels are and how much cortisol levels you are putting out. The important aspect is that you have to check those levels multiple times in a day. If you're just checking your cortisol levels in the morning, it is not going to give you the complete picture. So easy test, just check your saliva for cortisol levels. That will give you exactly whether you have adrenal dysfunction going or not.
Now let's talk about any different supplements for people with adrenal dysfunction. Like, is there anything in specific? Like, I know ashwagandha is really good for adrenal dysfunction. Anything that you've seen that really does well for adrenal issues?
Yep. So I think, as you mentioned, ashwagandha, that definitely works great. So these are category of herbs which are called adaptogenic herbs. So they help a lot, with adrenal dysfunction. Ashwagandha being kind of top on the list. Then after that, we have ginseng, then we have rhodiola. Those three are top of my list. If you are suffering from chronic fatigue issues, if you take a combination of these three, rhodiola, ginseng, and ashwagandha, it just works great. You are going to feel definitely a difference.
Mm. So let's say someone is really struggling with brain fog. Let's just say they just feel like they have difficulty in focusing. They're forgetful. They're kind of feeling cloudy. They just always feel like they're kind of feeling confused or in a fog. What would you say to them?
So I will say that, that's a biggest indication that your mitochondria is not happy. So the brain fog ultimately, when they get older, can lead to dementia, can lead to Alzheimer's and things. So first of all, they need to act now. So that is very, very important. And then in that acting process, what needs to be done is that they need to make a comprehensive plan to address all the things that can help their mitochondria to regenerate so that the brain fog can get better. And the good news is that the brain fog does get better. I cannot tell you numerous patients that came with brain fog and which were like young in their 30s and 40s, and after being on the protocol with me, their lives just changed. So then we need to obviously address the diet. That is the important aspect. So we definitely need to address the diet, which is the important aspect, where we need to kind of reduce or remove the food which causes inflammation. We need to introduce a food which heals your brain. Like spices like ginger and turmeric, and good, like omega-3 fatty acids. Those are all wonderful for your brain. And then we need to get you on some supplements to heal your brain. And then the brain fog definitely gets better.
Hey guys, I wanted to tell you I'm offering a free weight loss virtual Bible study. Now is the perfect time to focus on understanding true hunger and fullness and learn what the Bible has to say about it. All you have to do is go to chantelrayway.com/Bible study. After you sign up, you'll receive a 6-week Bible study video that you can watch on your own, or you can get a small group of people and do it together. That's chantelrayway.com/Bible study for your free 6-week Bible study course. Yeah, and I think you nailed it with the magnesium, because magnesium is a really vital nutrient that supports your mitochondrial health. And then if you don't have enough magnesium, you will then be constipated, which then you have severe constipation, causes massive amounts of thyroid issues. It's funny because I started taking, you've heard of the Calm. You've heard of CAM.
Yes, that's
so I started taking the Calm gummies just because like when I want something sweet, like after I eat, instead of having something else, I'll just have a couple of those gummies. And that has really helped because I don't really love the taste of the
powder.
Of the powder. But like if I want something sweet after I eat, I'm like, this is perfect. I'm getting my magnesium. So talk about the different types of magnesium and there's so many different types of magnesium, but what is the right magnesium that is going to be the best for mitochondrial purposes and brain fog purposes?
Yeah, so as you said, there are different kinds of magnesium and depends on what is your main issue, I then recommend it. So if people who have constipation issues, then magnesium citrate works great because that helps with your regular bowel movements and then keeps your gut happy as well as, keeps your mitochondria happy. But there is another magnesium called magnesium threonate. So that has actually shown in research to work better for people who have brain fog issues or who have neurological disorders, like again, dementia, or, who have MS issues or who have dementia issues. The magnesium threonate works much more better. It is better absorbed. So it is systemically absorbed much better than the other kinds of magnesium. And it has shown that, they will definitely see a difference on that.
Awesome. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today. Tell listeners where they can find you and where they can follow you.
Absolutely. So the best way to kind of find me is going on my website, which is anshulguptamd.com. I have an active blog, so I keep writing about new research that has been coming up, especially for thyroid patients and Hashimoto's. I am on social media, so you can follow me on Instagram. My handle again is over there is Anshul Gupta MD. So follow me over there. I do a lot of educational live events. I also keep posting so that, people get educated and they know that there is a life, that they are missing out on. Hashimoto's, you have terrible symptoms, and most of the females have been told that they have to live this life forever. But I want to let you know that there is a life, which is totally different. You can get rid of brain fog, you can improve fatigue, and you can lose this weight. And the good part is that this is a sustainable weight loss.
Awesome. Well, this is great. And you still are seeing patients? Are you seeing patients via Zoom? Can anyone across the country come see you via Zoom?
That's correct. Yes. So, because of the COVID situation, right now we have this virtual practice. So anybody across the country can, get consultation with me. I'm working on actually right now I'm working on one-to-one consultations with all of my clients. So they have direct access to me all the time that way.
That's awesome. Well, Dr. Gupta, it's been our pleasure to have you. And if you guys have a question, remember, go to questions@chantelrayway.com, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being on the show.
This has been a SIMPRONTO Media production.